Thiamin, vitamin B1. Jim was hanging out at the seaside bar with his buddy Anthony. They meet here every night after work and stay until the bar closes. The waitress always brings them their usual 5 beers, but tonight Anthony noticed that Jim was on his 7th beer. Jim told Anthony that he was feeling nauseous, then suddenly vomited. He got up to walk to the bathroom but wobbled, then fell. He looked up at Anthony and asked, "Where are we?" Anthony noticed that Jim's eyes were making weird, repetitive movements. Anthony called 911. When the paramedics arrived, he told them about Jim's symptoms. The paramedic noticed that Jim was showing signs of mental confusion and also nystagmus, which is uncontrolled repetitive eye movements. The paramedic asked Anthony how often Jim drinks alcohol. Anthony reluctantly told him that Jim could be an alcoholic. Once Jim was at the hospital, Dr. Omar ran a lab test and discovered that Jim had a thiamin, also known as vitamin B1, deficiency. Anthony, who was also secretly an alcoholic, was worried that this might happen to him. He asked the doctor to explain what that meant. Dr. Omar hooked Jim up to an IV that contained thiamin and told Anthony that Jim had an acute neurological complication of thiamin deficiency known as Wernicke encephalopathy. Luckily, it had not fully progressed to the chronic form of the disease known as Korsakoff syndrome, which leads to irreversible memory loss and dementia. The thiamin IV was working, and Jim woke up feeling much better. Dr. Omar asked Jim if he had been having any pain or any other symptoms such as mental confusion, blurry vision, or numbness or tingling in his fingers. "Well, yes," Jim admitted. "My vision has been worse lately, and my fingers keep going numb at work." Dr. Omar said. "Have you had any recent memory difficulties?" "No," replied Jim. "This is good news," said Dr. Omar. "You have a thiamin deficiency, Jim, and that caused a brain disorder called Wernicke's encephalopathy. It can result in mental confusion, ocular abnormalities, peripheral neuropathy, and ataxia. This is an acute phase of the degenerative brain disorder. Fortunately, you do not have the chronic phase, which is called Korsakoff syndrome. This is a memory disorder that can cause amnesia, disorientation, vision problems, and even lead to a coma." In this stage of the disease, individuals have difficulty acquiring new information or creating new memories. Korsakoff syndrome cannot be reversed. Jim and Anthony thanked the doctor, and Jim rested while Anthony decided to head home. He got to the elevator, but it was out of order. He headed down the stairs and started to have trouble breathing. Halfway down the stairs, Anthony was huffing and puffing. He couldn't put enough oxygen into his lungs and collapsed. A nurse heading up the stairs called a code blue. Anthony was put on a gurney and wheeled into the room right next to Jim. Dr. Omar came in and was not that surprised to see Anthony. He asked, "Are your ankles usually that swollen?" Anthony told the doctor that his ankles started swelling up about a week ago. "You have another form of thiamin deficiency called beriberi," said Dr. Omar. "It can affect the heart as well as the nervous system and can occur in 2 forms. Dry beriberi, Jim's type, is characterized by mental confusion, speech difficulties, and peripheral neuropathy, mostly of the extremities. Wet beriberi, your type, includes signs of cardiac involvement, including heart failure, peripheral edema, and tachycardia, in addition to neuropathy." He mentioned that in addition to chronic alcoholism, thiamin deficiency can also be seen in individuals with AIDS, anorexia, severe GI conditions, systemic malignancy, and older adults. The common denominator is dietary deficiencies. Dr. Omar looked at both men and stated, "You both are in your 40s with no chronic medical conditions. So that only leaves one option. He asked them, "How much do you two drink?" Sheepishly, the pair admit to going to the bar most nights and drinking around a six-pack a day. "It's hard to go a day without it," Jim exclaims. Dr. Omar discusses chronic alcohol dependence with both of them and how it affects thiamine levels. Alcohol calories usually replace calories obtained from a well-balanced, healthy diet. He tells them that thiamine functions as a coenzyme in the Krebs cycle to help produce ATP, also known as adenosine triphosphate, basically cellular energy. Anthony looked at Dr. Omar and said, "Doc, that is way too scientific for me. What does that really mean?" Dr. Omar laughed and said, "Remember when you had difficulty walking or breathing? When there isn't enough thiamine, your body can't produce the ATP, or energy, it needs for proper brain and heart function. You are lucky that you didn't end up with lactic acidosis, since thiamine functions as a cofactor in the mitochondria for pyruvate dehydrogenase during glycolysis, which helps convert pyruvate to acetyl-CoA. Without thiamine, pyruvate is unable to enter the citric acid or Krebs cycle to aid in the production of ATP and instead is converted to lactic acid." He tells them that thiamine is an essential water-soluble vitamin and must be eaten in the food, since the body can only store limited quantities in the liver and the leftover is excreted in the urine. He said that there is no upper limit established by the FDA, and you two, as adult men, will need 1.2 milligrams per day. The RDA for adult women is 1.1 milligrams per day and 1.4 milligrams per day for women during pregnancy and lactation. Jim asked, "How can we eat more thiamine? I don't want to lose my memory." "Don't worry," said Dr. Omar. "By eating lots of whole grains, fortified cereal, beans, fish, and especially pork, you can get plenty of thiamine from your diet." Dr. Omar told them that the thiamine molecule in food is denatured by heat and pasteurization, but it is heat-stable in acid. If you cook pork with a lemon sauce, you can help prevent thiamine loss. Jim and Anthony agreed to eat more pork, and we do love bacon. I also recommend attending AA meetings to help prevent any further nutrient deficiencies. Jim and Anthony look at each other. "I'll go if you go," Jim grumbles. "Ditto," Anthony grumbles back. Key items to remember are that thiamine is also known as vitamin B1 and is an essential vitamin. It is water-soluble and when cooking is lost as the temperature rises, but is heat-stable when cooked in acid. Foods that contain higher levels of thiamine are whole grains, fortified cereal, beans, fish, and especially pork. Thiamine functions as a coenzyme in the Krebs cycle to help produce ATP, and a deficiency often shows increased plasma pyruvate. Thiamine deficiency, most commonly from chronic alcoholism, presents itself in many forms. Dry beriberi includes symptoms of mental confusion, speech difficulties, and peripheral neuropathy, mostly of the extremities. Wet beriberi can mimic symptoms of heart failure, including tachycardia, shortness of breath, and peripheral edema. Both types of beriberi can lead to Wernicke encephalopathy or progress to Korsakoff syndrome. Wernicke's encephalopathy is the acute phase of the degenerative brain disorder and can result in mental confusion, ocular abnormalities, peripheral neuropathy, and ataxia. Korsakoff syndrome is the irreversible chronic phase and presents as a memory disorder that can cause amnesia, disorientation, vision problems, and even lead to a coma.